Hi everyone, I'm Brianna and welcome to Roll Initiative. I think a lot of DMs can agree that pets can be really difficult to run, especially if the DM is running them, because the DM has enough on their plate without having to run every party member's pet. So, on today's top tips for DMs, we're going to be looking at a few ways that you can make running pets much easier and more fun. So, let's get started. One of the biggest things that a DM can do to make running pets much easier for themselves is to get the players to run their own pets. Especially if everyone in the party has their own, it's going to be very difficult for you as the DM to run all of their pets while running the entire game. So I think it's really good if you can get your players to run their own pets. So if they want a pet, make it clear that they can have one, they just have to be able to run it themselves. They can't expect you to run it for them, and if they want to roleplay and do all that sort of stuff with their pet, then they're going to have to do it with themselves. And I think that is something that's very good to make clear when your players ask about pets, that they're going to have to run them. And I think it's also really good because it gives your players another aspect of the game that they have control over. They have the pet that they can interact with, and they don't really need the DM to be able to be having fun with their pet. They don't need to wait until the DM has time to talk to them about what their pet is doing. It's another aspect of the game that is just theirs, and I think that can be really great for a lot of players. I find a way of running pets with the pets having a kind of class actually works really well. Whether you want just a pet, a combat companion, or a steed, if you can get your players to choose what they want, then there's going to be almost a different rule set for each one. The steed is pretty much just a steed. It can hang around or it can just go off, and you'll have some sort of whistle or flute or something to call it back so that you can use it. It's pretty much transport. It'll come when you call it and bring you where you want to go. I think the combat companion is probably the most difficult to run, mainly because it's the only one that really needs many stats. And it's really helpful with this one if you can alter its stats and then give the stats to the player, or even just help the player make the stats, so that you have a better idea of what it can do and making sure that it is balanced. Because much like playing a monster, you don't just keep the monster's stats, you have to level them to actually be like a player. I think it's very similar to that a creature's stats are going to have to change if they become a pet. And I use combat companions as also the only one of the pets that can be targeted in combat or really hurt, because it's the only one that can really actually come into combat. The others, if they're not in combat, they don't really get hurt. Because that is a risk that you're going to have to take with combat companions, because they're the only ones of the pets that can really die without the players being on board with it, as they're the only ones that can really go into combat. But they'll have certain attacks that you've checked out and you're okay with, and maybe they can even have some support abilities to help the player character whose pet it is. And I also find it best if it shares the player's initiative turn. It can act before or after the player, but I find it best if it acts on the same turn as the player, because that way it doesn't really add more to initiative or make it more complicated. And the pet is pretty much just for roleplay reasons. It's just so your players can have fun having pets and having cool animals. Though I actually thought that it would be really neat if you gave them different assisting abilities, such as them being able to track or find certain things, or even being able to dig, anything that's not really helpful that much in combat or anything, but they can still be useful in their own way. If you can give each pet sort of its own ability, something that it can do or something that it is good at, I think that can actually be really cool and really helpful and a really cool roleplay aspect throughout the game. But there we go, that's the end of this video, and I really hope it was helpful and that it might give you some ideas for running pets in your own games. And if it did, then I'd be really grateful if you'd consider giving it a like or even subscribing to my channel. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.